To order. This is meeting number 40 of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. We are here today televised and in public pursuant to Standing Order of Reference Thursday, March 27, 2014, to study the use of House of Commons resources by the official opposition. Mr. Mulcair, you're here today, and we'll give you 5 minutes for an opening statement, and please, if you would, introduce the guests that you've brought with you today, too.
C'est exactement ce que je me proposais de faire, Monsieur le Président.
That's exactly what I was planning to do. First of all, I would like to introduce on my left Madame Gisèle Dupuis, who is the Director of Operations for the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. On my right, Mr. Gébert, who is the Chef de Cabinet, Chief of Staff for the Opposition Office, and member of the NDP Party, Mr. Dugan. We're going to discuss some rather technical issues, and I think perhaps it would be a good use of the committee's time to answer more detailed questions later. Thank you. It's been a long time since I've appeared before a parliamentary committee. I've done it several times when I was a minister, because usually parliamentary committees have to study government activities.
We're quite keen to learn how to serve Canadians better and how these best practices are within the rules. The NDP is totally transparent, and we believe in and practice accountability. I'd like to take this opportunity to contrast our approach with the approach of the Conservatives. For example, Stephen Harper, Maxime Bernier, and Stockwell Day all refused to appear in front of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security about security breaches caused by the Conservative government. Christian Paradis and Lisa Raitt refused to testify in front of the Government Operations Committee about illegal lobbying activities involving them. And of course, the Prime Minister won't be testifying before this committee concerning the use of the Conservative Party database in thousands of illegal robocalls during the 2011 election, constituting electoral fraud on a level never seen before in Canada. And those are the direct findings of a very highly respected federal court judge, Richard Mosley. And of course, we all know the level of respect the Harper government shows our judiciary. I could go on, but it's an interesting contrast in transparency and accountability and respect for our democratic institutions, and Canadians will be the judge. I'm here today because in 2011, 4.5 million Canadians voted for the NDP. 4.5 million Canadians stated there was a need for change, that it was time to do politics differently. Under the leadership of Jack Layton, that's what we ran on, and that's what we set out to do, because after 30 years of Liberal and Conservative corruption, scandal, and mismanagement, from the Liberal sponsorship scandal to the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff paying $90,000 in hush money to silence a sitting senator, Canadians deserve better. Suite à la vague orange, le NPD faisait face à un défi de...
After the Orange Crush, the NDP had a serious challenge to deal with. They had 58 MPs from Quebec. That was an immense task, which is to train more than 150 people to serve Quebecers. That's why in June 2011, at the suggestion of Jack Layton, the Quebec branch of the NDP decided to pool their resources. The goal was to put an office into place and to help MPs in order to help them with constituency work, and some of them to help them in their role as participants in the shadow cabinet and offer better service to the Canadian public by being present and by being able to listen to citizens. All parliamentary functions, as an example, parliamentary staff prepare communication products. They conduct media relations, and they hold community relations in order to support MPs in the official opposition. There was also a real need to create a francophone environment, to create products in French in order to better support our members from Quebec. Our parliamentary staff does parliamentary work. Our party staff does party work.
Our party staff does party work. Our parliamentary staff are involved in direct communications, media relations, and stakeholder relations, all functions in support of MPs and the official opposition. Le tout a été mis en place après.
Everything was implemented after many, many consultations with House administration. This includes legal services, financial services, and officials of pay services. This was so much the case that paychecks were delayed until the end of November 2011, the time for everything to be approved. Hiring in Montreal started in August 2011. The hiring process followed the procedure established at the time by the collective agreement between the NDP caucus and Section 232 of the Communications Union, SCEP. All the members of this bargaining unit accomplish parliamentary functions only. For non-parliamentary duties, employees are assigned to Section 225, SEPB. For each of these bargaining units, their tasks are well defined. Job notices are always posted according to prescribed deadlines. Hiring is clearly explained. Services in Montreal and Quebec were offered with great success, and that's why we are here today. We did our work too well. MPs can count on constant support, be it in the riding or on the Hill. This allowed them to increase the effectiveness of our teams and communications.
More and more regional ministerial offices, 17 as of now in fact, the NDP had to continue to adapt. As part of our duties as official opposition, we have to monitor the work of the government on the ground in order to hold it to account. So, as the new...
Please. You're a minute past
yes,
your 5
I have exactly a minute left to go. Well, so as the new official opposition, New Democrats made the decision to engage with citizens in every province and territory. We know it's a concept foreign to Conservatives and Liberals who prefer to talk with lobbyists in Ottawa, but Canadians deserve better. While our opponents are wasting parliamentary resources attacking the NDP, New Democrats are using these resources to reach out to Canadians in their communities. Because Canadians want politicians to be more accessible to them in their own communities, where they live, where things happen, where they can be heard and listened to. That's why we set out to talk to them, consult with them, and listen to them as often and as broadly as possible. All of these, once again, are clearly parliamentary activities. This is our commitment to Canadians, and that is what we set out to do. I'll skip ahead because you're impatient to get started, and I don't blame you. But I will tell you one thing. This is not the first time the NDP is innovating the way parliamentary activities are undertaken in order to serve Canadians. I'll end with this. And it's a quote from a report prepared for the Privy Council office in 2005. Quote, "It's a rare event that an extension to Parliament is invented without any design or debate, yet essentially the introduction of constituency offices to Canada was a spontaneous act that didn't occur until an enterprising MP decided to create one. Credit at the federal level is shared between Ed Broadbent, who opened an office funded in part by the Canadian Auto Workers Union in 1968, and progressive conservative Flora MacDonald, who opened her Kingston office with the aid of a part-time university student in 1973. We're proud that our effective extension to Parliament has resulted in better services to Canadians. I'll be happy to answer your questions in the unlikely case that you still have some."
Thank you, Mr. Mulcair. On a point of order.
Yeah. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Ça va être bref. C'est un appel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be brief. This is a point of order.
Heard from Richard Denis, the Deputy Law Clerk and Parliamentary Counsel, and specifically said to the committee a few days ago, given these factors, it's important that the committee should exercise caution in its proceedings in order to avoid unnecessarily compromising the confidentiality normally afforded to members by the House administration. Furthermore, Mr. Denis said, we would therefore recommend that the material provided by House administration be retained solely for the use of committee members and not be released to the public. As you know, Mr. Chair, this has been raised with you. We've had everything that has been put out partially leaked within minutes of the material being distributed to committee members. And this is deplorable, as you know. This is not the way procedure in House affairs
Thank you, Mr.
should be
Julian.
functioning.
Thank you, Mr. Julian, but the committee has already seized itself with the research on that point. I believe you know that, so I won't take this as a point of order.
This is a new point. This was from yesterday.
Will you very quickly get to it then?
Well, I'm saying that
Okay, well,
this has happened.
then your committee
this
is
has
still
happened
seized with the
repeatedly.
same thing, and we will be doing our research to determine cause, as we already suggested. Mr. Woodworth, for 7 minutes, please.
I'll try to be brief also. I just want to be clear on the scope of this committee, because I read with very big interest the note de service de Monsieur Richard Denis, le légiste adjoint et conseiller.
Mr. Richard Denis' memoranda. I just want to be sure that this is indeed what the chair is describing. You surprised me with some of your answers in the House. The way you characterized some aspects of the process. The Richard Denis, in a memorandum on May 9th, in a message dated May 6th, congratulations to your services that managed to draw up a legal notice in 3 days. That's rather impressive. This note clearly explains the difference in skills between the Board of Internal Economy and the powers of this committee. It clearly delineated the powers of each body. The conclusion, in light of everything that precedes it, indicated that the committee can examine the questions that the House of Commons refers to it, keeping in mind, however, that it must not infringe upon the exclusive jurisdiction conferred by 52.6 of the Act on the use of House of Commons resources provided to MPs to exercise their parliamentary functions. This is a point of order because a lot of colleagues at the end of the table are enthusiastic and on this side. You have let it be understood that you are doing exactly what your parliamentary law clerk told you not to do. I would like you to clarify your role. In my case, I would like to do it before we start, rather than do it in 5 months from now and cast doubt upon the propriety of certain conversations.
Thursday, March 27th, was from the House of Commons as a whole, and certainly the reference was sent to this committee to study the use of House of Commons resources by the official opposition. If the reference came from the House of Commons, I'm suggesting that the Speaker of the House agrees with what we're doing, and so the committee will carry on with the reference from the House on the study of this matter. Mr. Woodworth, rounds of questions, 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Bonjour, Monsieur Mulcair. Bienvenue et merci beaucoup.
Hello, Mr. Mulcair. Thank you for spending time with us today.
For questions which are simple yes and no, and I hope you won't mind if I proceed in that fashion today.
Not only do not mind, but we would have been disappointed if it had been otherwise. We were anticipating it, and that's how we prepared, Mr. Woodsworth.
I will begin with trying to establish some facts with you, but I would be grateful if you allowed me to ask my questions. Beginning with a simple fact, your Quebec MPs hired staff sent to work at 4428 Boulevard Saint-Laurent, Montreal. Yes or no?
That's what was indicated in all the documents sent to the House of Commons and discussed with the IT people.
Yes or no
with
is
the
fine,
personnel
Mr.
pay and
I
benefits
appreciate it
people.
if you would simply
Every
answer my
step
question.
of the way, this was discussed with the people here in the House of
order,
Commons,
Mr.
and
Chair.
that is the address, Mr. Woodworth.
Mr. Woodworth, on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question was really quite simple and capable of a yes or no answer. Mr. Mulcair began to run on, and I assume with the intention of delaying my next question. That's not the way it works in committee. Mr. Mulcair had his 5 minutes to make his explanations, self-exculpatory or not, and I would be grateful if you would instruct the witness to simply answer the questions and allow me to move on to my next question.
On the same point of order, Mr. Chair. Well, having been around here for 10 years and having seen Conservative ministers responding to questions, every single time they ask for some time to elaborate, and I think Mr. Woodsworth is being just a bit disingenuous if he pretends that that's not the practice here. As you know, Mr. Chair, that's how committees function. We allow the witnesses to give the response that they need to give.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Not completely a point of order, but let's, from cooperation point of view, try and keep questions and answers about the same length and see if we can just get that done that way. Mr. Woodworth?
Thank you,
I'd like to finish my answer, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask my next question, and that is, Mr. Mulcair.
I did not get to give a complete answer to Mr. Woodworth.
These staff were paid by taxpayer dollars through the House of Commons, yes or no?
Your question was whether or not the employees were working on Saint-Laurent. La réponse à votre question, c'est qu'au début, ils étaient sur la rue.
The answer to your question is that at the beginning they were working on Papineau Street. No. Sorry, I'm giving a complete answer. The complete answer is at the beginning they were on Papineau Street, and afterwards they were on Saint-Laurent Boulevard. All of this was approved every step of the way by the Pay and Benefits Service of the House.
Mr. Chair, I did not ask about approvals. I would like to ask my next question, and I don't appreciate the witness preventing me from doing so.
I will...
Same point of order, Mr. Chair. If Mr. Woodsworth had actually listened to the response that was given by the Leader of the Opposition, he could see that there was actually two parts in the answer to his question. And if he does want the answers, he's got to listen to them.
Mr. Julian, and we'll let the questioner ask the questions and the witness answer the questions, and hopefully we'll get this going. Mr. Woodworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, these staff were paid by taxpayer dollars through the House of Commons, yes or no?
Every step of the way, we were in discussion with Pay and Benefits of the House of Commons, who sent the BlackBerry numbers for the Montreal phones.
Don't you know whether they were paid by taxpayer dollars, Mr. Mulcair?
And of course, it was paid
Thank you. That's
out
the
of the
answer to my
budgets
question.
that are consented to the Leader of the Official Opposition,
Mr.
which, by the way,
Mulcair,
have been
did all of these
reduced
Quebec
by the
MPs have a
Conservatives by
signed lease in their
8%
name
at
at
the same time that the
4428
Prime Minister's
Saint Laurent
budgets were
Boulevard,
being
Montreal?
increased by 10%.
Did all of these Quebec MPs have a signed lease in their name at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard, Montreal?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Did all of these MPs who hired employees to work at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard have a signed lease in their name for that location?
Je pense que la réponse à la question, Monsieur le Président.
I believe the answer to the question, Mr. Chair, is in the document that we tabled before the committee before it started today, as you requested in the House yesterday.
Vous avez la réponse dans le document que j'ai soumis.
You have the answer in the document that I submitted, Mr. Chair.
If you're willing to answer questions.
La réponse, c'est que
The answer is that the office did not cost a single cent to taxpayers. Renting the office was paid entirely by the party.
Please, Mr.
Point
Mulcair.
of order,
mais, Monsieur
Mr.
le
Chair.
Président, la réponse est évidente.
Mr. Chair, the answer is obvious. It's in the lease that I submitted to you today. He knows very well the answer to his question. However, but if it can help him, I'm happy to table in the House, even if it's not required. I'm prepared to give all of the checks that the NDP paid in order to prove that not a single cent of taxpayer money was used for renting those offices.
But I think the witness knows that, and I'm going to ask
Mr.
my next
Woodworth,
question.
if I can help clear just a little, before the start of the meeting today, I was shown a copy of the lease in one language, some other documents in the other official language, therefore they cannot be distributed. That's why Mr. Mulcair is talking about a document delivered today, but the committee has yet to be able to see it.
In any event, whoever has the base lease does not preclude members of Parliament from having subleases, but I'm going to take the witness as saying that members of Parliament did not have signed leases in their names at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard, Montreal. And I'm going to ask my next question, Mr. Mulcair. You've been quoted as saying that you and your MPs were completely respectful of all the rules while you were sending House of Commons paid staff to 4428 Boulevard Saint Laurent, Montreal. And you confirm that today, too, yes or no?
C'est exactement ce que nous...
That's exactly what we've been saying since the beginning. We know the rules, and we discussed every step with those responsible in pay and benefits at the House of Commons. We have been in constant contact with legal services of the House of Commons. All of that was approved according to them and according to us as well, and that's why it took a certain amount of time. Yes, according to all of them, we were obeying the rules. Every time there was a question, it was resolved through discussion, and yes, as far as we know, everything has been respected.
Your team inform yourselves from the rules before you reach the conclusion that you were respecting them all. Yes or no?
Monsieur le Président, je suis du genre.
Mr. Chair, I'm the kind of person who likes to check on things. Over the last few weeks, we've had the opportunity, many opportunities, to look at this in detail. One of the most important rules is the following one, and it's worth referring to it in response to the question of my colleague, and I will do it in English so that he doesn't miss anything.
Of the Parliament of Canada Act, duties and activities that relate to the position of member wherever performed, and whether or not performed in a partisan manner, namely participation in activities relating to the proceedings and work of the House of Commons and activities undertaken in representing his or her constituent.
Please, Mr.
I did not ask the witness to quote whatever rule he's quoting. It's not the rule I'm interested in, and surely I'm entitled to ask questions about what I'm interested in and not be prevented by the witness rambling on about what he wants to explain. He had his 5 minutes. He's got other members here at the table who will give him an opportunity to explain whatever he wants to explain. Surely I'm entitled to ask my questions.
Answers may be a different thing. Question.
Is the one who asked if the leader of the official opposition had, with his MPs,
I don't need interpretation of the question.
So let him answer, and that's what he's explaining what he did.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Mr. Woodworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask you about a rule that I'm interested in, Mr. Mulcair, and I'm going to quote it to you from Section 4.1 of the Member Services and Allowance Manual. Members may share office space with another member, a member of a provincial legislature, or an elected municipal representative. Are you familiar with that rule, yes or no?
Yes, of course I am.
Do you agree that the plain words of this rule do not authorize members of Parliament to share space with a partisan political party, yes or no?
No, I don't.
Do you see that referenced in the rule anywhere, Mr. Mulcair?
Yes, I do.
Can you read to me where in Section 4.1 you find authorization for a member to share space with a partisan political party?
Mr. Chairman, on April 8th, 2014, some 1.5 months ago, there was a change of rules, and I'll read it to you. Adopting the following provisional amendment to the member's bylaw, place of work. No employee of a member or House officer may have as their regular place of work any space in premises owned, leased, or under the effective control of a political party. Now, what's interesting here is that it comes into force on April 14th, and it has the effect of preventing employees or contractors whose salaries are being paid by the House of Commons from working on premises owned, leased, or by a political party.
Yeah. I have to stop you. Mr. Woodward's time is up.
Oh, darn.
I'm going to go to Mr. Julian. Something tells me he may allow you to finish.
Well, I certainly will. Mr. Chair, Mr. Wordsworth, I think it's rather rich, and I think...
Mr. Julian, I have a point of order from Mr. Reid.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the rules of this committee preclude the clerk from distributing to members of the committee any document that is in one official language only. It is, of course, therefore very convenient for the New Democrats that the lease was submitted in one language only. However, it is also the case that I approached the clerk, asked to see it. The rules do not prohibit members from taking a look at documents if they choose to do so. In fact, the Constitution clearly states, the Constitution of Canada, that any individual may interact with the Parliament in the language of their choice. Therefore, I don't really care what language the lease is in, whether it's in French or English. I wanted to see it, and I would like to be able to see it. So I wonder if you could instruct the clerk to allow me to take a look at that lease in order to determine the information that Mr. Mulcair refuses to share with the committee.
I have no problem with you looking at the lease. I just cannot distribute it because our rules are that it must be in both official languages. Without unanimous consent, I can't distribute it.
That's fine. I'll go up and take a look. Thank you very much.
Carry on, Mr. Julian.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask a series of questions. I appreciate Mr. Mulcair being here. PROC committee has been trying to get Mr. Harper here on a number of issues that have been raised, and of course the majority has been refusing that. But I'm actually going to start with where Mr. Wordsworth ended up, which is the issue of co-location and
Point
the
of order,
issue of
Mr.
the
Chair.
changes.
Mr. Woodworth.
I'd just like the member opposite to pronounce my name correctly. It is Woodworth.
I apologize.
Otherwise, I will start calling him Mr. Julian.
I've been called worse. I've been called worse, Mr. Woodworth.
Let's keep it through the chair.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm having a lot of fun with points of order today, but it sure is dragging out the committee. So let's see if we can get through one line of questions without them.
I apologize to Mr. Woodworth. And now there is an office, actually, I'm well familiar with in Chilliwack, because he was talking about co-location. It's 7388 Vetter Road in Chilliwack. It's a co-location. At that same address, we have Mark Strawls, MP's office paid by taxpayers' money, and the Conservative Party of Canada. Same address, same location, co-location. And obviously, the OIE says that that's fine. So my first in the many questions I have for the official opposition leader is if he is aware of how many Conservative MPs do the same thing. They have that co-location where they have a Conservative Party of Canada office with their riding office. The second question...
Excuse me, Mr. Julian. I see my guidance on points of order may have gone unnoticed.
Mr. Chair, I know you've asked that we be judicious in our use of points of order. However, I do feel there's some misinformation that needs to be corrected here. Certainly, I'm aware of the Chilliwack office he's referring to. There is, in fact, two separate leases. One is a Conservative Party of Canada lease. One is the Member of Parliament's lease. They just happen to be in the same shopping mall. So there's a very clear difference between this and what the NDP is doing, where they're using taxpayer resources.
Thank you,
in the same
Mr.
office.
Richards. Mr. Julian.
Again, 7388 Vetter Road, common address, co-location. Now, I'll move on, though. I'll ask you a number of questions. You probably won't have time in the 7 minutes to answer them, but I hope, Mr. Mulcair, you'll answer them in the minutes that follow. You affirm the NDP is confirming to the new rules the Conservative-dominated BOIE imposed on April 8th. Secondly, what were the barriers between parliamentary staff and non-parliamentary staff? And I'm talking about physical barriers, the collective agreements, different unions, supervisory barriers. Were there ever any grievances filed by non-parliamentary staff about parliamentary staff doing their work? The job descriptions, did they follow the members' bylaws? It's very clear that if doing individual members' duties or electoral fundraising, those kinds of things, that would not be parliamentary duties. How much money was paid by the party instead of by taxpayers? So how much money was saved by having the party pay the lease? And how much have you saved? How much has the official opposition budget actually decreased since 2011? And how much has the PMO budget increased at the same time? And wanted to just have you respond about the expansion of Conservative ministers' regional offices across the country. The budget seems to have substantially expanded. In fact, in many areas where Conservatives have no MPs, like Newfoundland
and Northwest Territories and Montreal. And those are my questions. Please answer them as you can, perhaps in this section or later. And thank you for being here.
Well, that's Mr. Chairman, it's such a substantive question now that it deserves a substantive answer now. With regard to the place of work, there has been a change that came into effect on April 8th, 2014. There's a basic principle of statutory interpretation. It's best expressed in French. Le législateur ne parle pas pour rien dire.
The legislator does not speak to say nothing.
Could no longer have someone at the regular place of work, a space owned, leased under the effective control of a political party. That's because it was not interdicted prior to that. So that's why that change was brought in. It was like trying to tell somebody who's just driving to the cottage for Victoria Day weekend in a 100-kilometer-an-hour zone that after they got to the cottage, it became a construction zone and the speed limit was reduced to 70, that even though they had gotten there before the speed change was made, that somehow they're going to get a ticket. We respected the rules as they existed, and it was implicit in Mr. Woodworth's question, and I would like to get to it. The space that we're talking about, the lease, was 100% assumed by the NDP. And I offer again, the checks are bilingual as far as I can tell. I can certainly help them all because I've put together, and we've had our services put together, a copy of every single check. And you'll see that the annual rent is approximately $100,000, every penny of which is assumed by the NDP. No one questions the fact that our MPs' employees are allowed to travel back and forth. No one questions the fact that the OLO employees are allowed to travel back and forth. That's the very essence of the very first section of the members' bylaw, and it says, duties and activities that relate to the position of Member of Parliament wherever performed, and whether or not performed in a partisan matter. That's the first article of the rules governing Members of Parliament. Namely, participation in activities relating to the proceedings and work of the House, activities undertaken in representing his or her constituents or the constituency. It doesn't matter how you're performing it, and it doesn't matter where you're performing it. To hear the Conservatives tell it, we would have had to have hired that staff here in Ottawa, like the Liberals like to do, and only talk to lobbyists. We're innovating. We're working across Canada. We're listening to Canadians. And Mr. Julian just asked an important question about matching the Conservative move. They're spending millions of dollars for themselves on these ministerial offices across Canada. Our job as the official opposition, as an integral part of our democratic institutions, is to hold that government to account, and we can't do that if we're here in Ottawa alone. The most interesting aspect of this is that I would be absolutely allowed, no one would question the fact that they're allowed to work in Montreal. So if someone on our communications staff was organizing, as they did this week, a press conference in Montreal for Huang Mai, our transport critic, and that person was to help him, according to the Conservatives, the best use of taxpayers' money would be to pay the kilometers back and forth to Montreal and keep that person working here in Ottawa. Since it is allowed for that person doing the press relations to work in Montreal, there is nothing to prevent him from being based in Montreal. There was nothing until April 8, 2014, preventing him from working out of a space paid for by the New Democratic Party of Canada. After that date, actually after April 14th, we had to make a change, which we did. We respected all the rules before. We respect all the rules after that change. But there was a change. The amendment that I just read was a substantial change to the existing rules, and it's a little bit like my cottager who's going to be looking at a change in the speed limit. There's no way you can apply that retroactively.
We were out of time on that round.
Oh, darn.
I'll go to Mr. Casey for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, in preparation for the meetings here today, we have been provided with a package of documents. One of those documents is a memorandum from the Clerk of the House of Commons. I'm sure you've had a chance to read it. That memorandum references a meeting that took place on October 13th, 2011, The purpose for the meeting was because some NDP employees had indicated their residence to be in Montreal, but their place of work to be in Ottawa. And at that meeting, the NDP Deputy Chief of Staff was asked directly where these employees worked, and she responded, in Ottawa. Can you explain why the NDP Deputy Chief of Staff would have misled the House of Commons administration with respect to that?
Well, that's an interesting question because it's so comically loaded. It's not worthy of nothing but contempt. You are affirming that that is the case, whereas if you look at that package, you'll see that on September 22nd, 2011, Marie-Dominique Cissé wrote to Christian Boileau, the same person who's talking at the House of Commons, and it says this: Bonjour Christian. I just took up to the 11th floor, suite 1145, 51 employment forms from each Quebec NDP MP for staff working in Montreal. These were the forms that divided up the number of people who were going to be paying the salary for each of the people based in Montreal. We also have a voluminous correspondence, nonstop, with the IT people in the House of Commons, every step of the way. We also have every posting, because we are unionized, and every one of those public postings explains that it's a job in Montreal. We also have every single letter of nomination sent to the House of Commons authorities that either mention specifically the address in Montreal of the work or the person's address in Montreal. Every step of the way, the House of Commons, its staff, have been informed. You are referring to something that someone today is saying happened 3 years ago. This is not a formal meeting. There are no minutes of this meeting. This is what your interpretation is of a snippet of a conversation or an exchange between two people. Jess Turk-Brown, in my knowledge, was an exceptionally capable public administrator. She left several years ago to go work to help register women to vote in Pakistan, where she spent more than 2 years.
That's a very
and
complete
she's
answer.
back, as far as I know, but I haven't spoken to her since she left for Pakistan. I find it grossly unfair for you to make that affirmation that she somehow broke the law.
Thank you. Let me address a couple of things that you raised in your answer. You said there were no minutes of the meeting. You are also aware that there is included in the package in preparation for this meeting an email from Sophie Hart to Robin Kells, which reads, "Here are the minutes of the meeting between NDP Jess Turk-Brown, HRS Christian Boileau, and FS Nathalie Charpentier." So that would address that point that you made, sir. The next point that you referenced an email of September 22nd from Marie-Dominique Cissé to Christian. You conveniently, sir, did not reference the response. The response was on October 7th. Christian Boileau to Marie-Dominique Cissé. It says, in the email below, the email that you referenced in your response, sir, in the email below, it is indicated that the employees all work in Montreal. On the employment forms we received for the 9 employees, it indicates they all work in Ottawa. Please confirm the work location. It was that exchange of emails, sir, that gave rise to the October 13th meeting, in which Jess Turk-Brown indicated that these employees work in Ottawa. So, let me come now to the Clerk of the House of Commons. Again, that same memorandum. The Clerk of the House of Commons says, at no point was the House administration informed that the employees would be located in Montreal or that their work would be carried out in co-location with a political party's offices. What you just said in your answer and what Audrey O'Brien just said cannot both be true. Which is it, sir?
What I've just said is true. I'm not going to let you impugn the motives of someone who worked for us a few years ago, and Audrey O'Brien is someone who is deserving of the respect of every single person in this House. She's an outstanding public officer who has served with dignity and deserves all of our respect and not to be the object of your tricks. Here's the answer to your question. Every step of the way. We published notices that said the job was in Montreal. They were public. We sent documents to the House administration that either referenced directly the fact that the job was in Montreal or gave the person's address in Montreal. They had BlackBerry phone numbers that were 514. Their home addresses were in Montreal were where their checks were sent to. We held a press conference to celebrate the opening of the Montreal office. It was carried everywhere from the Montreal Gazette to the Hill Times. I'm not David Copperfield. I can't make an office disappear. It was open. It was transparent. It was public. You're referencing something that completely obviates the mass of information that proves conclusively that the NDP was totally open, transparent, and sincere in working with the House administration on this issue from day one.
Point of order, Mr. Casey.
The question was fairly straightforward, and now we're into a bit of a soliloquy. There's a lot of information to get through. I would appreciate if the witness could be directed to restrict his answer to the question and to follow your guidance with respect to the length of the question and answer.
Let's keep trying, and then the answer should be the same length as the question, but let's try and keep, within right parameters here, folks. Let's see if we can get some information out. Mr. Casey?
The Chief Financial Officer, Mark Waters, also seems to have an inconsistent opinion with yours with respect to the House being informed every step of the way. In fact, just 2 months ago, he wrote, this pertains to Ottawa-based staff that was to be sharing amongst a number of Quebec-based MPs. I do not believe the NDP set up a Quebec office. That's 2 months ago. How do you square that with your assertion that House administration was informed every step of the way?
Mr. Casey, thank you. Your time is up. The witness can answer if he would like, or we'll move to
We have correspondence that follows on those exchanges in 2011. Dozens and dozens of emails back and forth. I can quote them from you from October 2012 up to January 2014. Direct correspondence with the House of Commons sent to them with the Montreal addresses with the title that the person will be occupying in Montreal. I believe that one part of your confusion comes from the fact that you believe that we said that they were working in Ottawa. If you look at the forms, it talks about the fact that you either have to say that they are being administered out of Ottawa or being administered out of a riding office. They were always administered out of Ottawa. That was also in the notices, that was also in the documents, and it was indeed the case. They were being administered out of Ottawa.
I'll stop you there and go on to Mr. Mulcair for, Mr. Woodworth for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I must say that in 5 years of sitting on committee, I have never seen a witness as evasive as this witness, but that said...
Point of order. Point of order. The personal insults are not appropriate.
That was simply a descriptor.
And the chair will take care of the rules. Mr. Julian, Mr. Woodworth, 4 minutes.
I am going to continue to try to get answers, so I'll ask you, Mr. Mulcair, do you agree that MPs are not allowed to use free mailing privileges or other House of Commons resources for activities designed in the context of an election to support or oppose a political party? Yes or no?
Well, I guess the answer to that is this lovely picture of Stephen Harper boasting strong economic leadership and this somewhat unflattering picture of me talking about reckless spending and higher taxes. You see, this is something invented by the Conservatives. So that's why we took it, you see, back to the Speaker of the House of Commons when Bob Rae started using franked envelopes to attack the NDP because we thought that that had been taken care of. Turns out, hadn't been taken care of. And the Speaker ruled, with a minor change to the number that could be sent, that the Speaker said that it was absolutely legit. Now, the NDP sometimes has a reputation for being overly generous in our interpretation to make sure that we don't follow this sort of thing, but we've started to say, you know what, we'll very directly communicate with the Canadian public using the exact same tactics and techniques as the Conservatives and the Liberals. Because in my 36 years in government, Mr. Woodworth, I've never seen the governing party get together with its handmaiden in the third party to convene the leader of the opposition. But you know what? I'm here and I'm going to answer all your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mulcair. Is it your position that a statement of the following nature may be sent using free mailing privileges of the House of Commons avec un chef expérimenté comme lui
An experienced leader like Louis, our party is the best party to beat other parties during the next federal elections in 2015. Together, we can work together and put the country on the right track.
House of Commons use of resources?
From Stephen Harper's mailings.
Yes or no,
Thomas
by the way?
Mulcair and the NDP have very different priorities than those of our Conservative government. Indeed, in Mr. Mulcair's first year as leader, he showed where his priorities really lie. He continued to support the $21.5 billion carbon tax, which is a bald-faced lie, a tax that would increase the cost of everything. Look, this is what you do, and that's what we do. We all do it. Don't, Mr. Woodworth. You're not signifying
to the 2015
yourself.
election and what you just read.
You're not
Surely
dignifying
it's beyond the pale for a member of Parliament to be enlisting support through free mailing privileges of the House of Commons for the 2015 election.
We have more, Mr. Woodworth.
Point of
you want
order,
me to
please.
start reading John Baird's mail-outs? They're identical.
Point of order. Again, I'm quoting from Richard Denis, de légiste adjoint, conseiller parlementaire.
Richard Denis, the deputy law clerk.
The scope that this committee could do on franchise postale, and it says quite clearly on page 4, la franchise postale n'est pas une ressource fournie par la Chambre des...
This is not a resource provided by the House of Commons. Its existence is part of Section 35 of the Canada Post Society. This dates before Confederation. Since this time it has been recognized. Given that this is a postal privilege for members, your committee can study its breadth and its scope and create recommendations as to its use by members. However, the role of the office when it comes to postage has to do with the application of postage according to paragraph 30. I think that all the questions from Mr. Woodworth are out of order. If you want to have a committee to deal specifically with the postage, that's great.
Type of literature from all parties.
Thank you very much. We'll carry on with Mr. Woodward's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, you've asserted that you and your representatives disclosed your staffing arrangements to the House of Commons administration, but do you agree with me that not once did you disclose to House of Commons administration that paid House of Commons staff would be working in a partisan political office? Yes or no?
I'm going to read to Mr. Woodworth an exchange of emails from November 22nd, 2011.
Time left. I hope it's a short section.
Bonjour, Marie-Dominique. This is from the House of Commons to us. Bonjour, Marie-Dominique. Voici comment...
Hello, Marie-Dominique. This is how the checks are going to be distributed for the 8/9 employees in Montreal. Here's the list. A check in Montreal, a check sent to a home, a direct deposit, and there was another. This was signed Christian Boileau. The House of Commons knew every step of the way that these people were working in Montreal up until the regulation was changed last month. Up until then, it was entirely permissible to work where they wanted to, including in an office whose lease was paid by a political party, Mr. Chair. We can't be any more clear than that.
To be clear at that, when someone's time's up, I'll give you notice that it is, and you will catch my eye, and we'll work well together. We'll move now to Mr. Christopherson. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think we've sufficiently established that there was no hiding or secrecy going on here. Everybody knew, and that last email that says, would you arrange this for the employees in Montreal? I mean, if somebody's trying to hide something, they're doing a really, really poor job. So having established that there was no secret and that it was known that the office was there, Mr. Mulcair, you had mentioned earlier that there were physical barriers, there were supervisory barriers, there were legal barriers in terms of the collective agreement that would separate the functioning of the staff between the parliamentary side and the partisan side. Would you expand on that for us so we can understand exactly what happened on the ground, sort of on a day-to-day basis in that office?
And the actual lease includes an annex where you can clearly see the 3 closed offices that were for the 3 party workers. They had separate spaces closed off, and the rest of the space was shared. The 2 collective agreements are quite substantial, as is normally the case, and anyone who's worked in that atmosphere understands that it is a great illustration of the old principle that good fences make good neighbors. In other words, when you have a collective agreement for one, they know what work is reserved for their bargaining unit, for their section, for their union. And there's never been a problem with that. I checked with the heads of both unions before coming here today. I said, okay, have we had grievances? And there have been none. So that means that these things have been enforced and applied very strictly, that we've followed every step of the way, the physical separation of the work, the actual separation by job category and function as prescribed in the collective agreement. Now, it is worth pointing out, maybe it won't come as a surprise to anyone, I know no one in the NDP is surprised about it, we are the only political party in Parliament that is unionized. In other words, we're the only ones who can make this proof, because actually the whole question here today is whether or not we were performing parliamentary duties. So we have to go back every time to Section 1 of the members' bylaw. The question is not whether or not they could work in Montreal. That's established in Article 1. That's set out right away. They can work in Montreal. The question then becomes, were they allowed to work in a place that was rented and the rent was paid for by a political party? The answer to that is yes. Up until the month of April 2014, they could do that. You wouldn't have had to bring in that new rule if it was already not allowed. That new rule was brought in because it was allowed. So we followed the new rule once it was brought in. But every step of the way, we've been open and transparent with the House of Commons. We've been open and transparent with this committee. We've respected the rules, and I'm very proud of the fact that we're the only unionized shop in Canadian and indeed in North American politics. But it also gives me the advantage to say that I know that the 2 have always been separated.
Thank you. So we've now established that they can work there, that it was no secret, and the fact that the people that were there were performing as they should, the separation between parliamentary functions and party functions. Probably not that much different than we saw with Mr. Stroll's office and the Conservative Party being at exactly the same address in the same mall, just a couple of units over. So my question...
let's not plow the same ground, Mr. Richards. A point of order.
Debate it.
We continue to hear this allegation. These are 2 separate offices in 2 separate locations in the same strip mall.
Thank you.
With 2 different leases. This is very much different than what the NDP is doing with their taxpayer-funded offices.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Richards. Mr. Julian, when I'm ruling on a point of order, I don't need your help. I actually take great offense to your help. So we'll go back to Mr. Christopherson. You have about 12 seconds left.
So is there a ruling, though?
I told him it was not a point of order.
Okay,
But thank you
excellent.
for
So
your
I
help,
missed
too.
it. I missed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Funny that he keeps jumping like that. I wonder why he's so sensitive. When did the Saskatchewan office open up, Mr. Mulcair?
Well, of course, there is no Saskatchewan office, but there will be a person working for me in Saskatchewan. Of course, we had to rely on the lone Liberal there. Not much would get done. And the Conservatives, of course, take the place for granted. So there are issues like the movement of grain, bumper crop, inability to get it to market, being there on the ground, matching move for move what the government does, because our role as official opposition requires us to do that. We will be hiring someone in Saskatchewan, but no, there won't be an office.
Thank you. Again, the chair doesn't want to have to yell over, but please, when I say thank you, that probably means bring it to a close there. We'll go to Mr. Woodworth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, I'd like to go back to the issue of mailing, and for a moment I'll leave aside the question of using taxpayer dollars through free mailing privileges to send out thousands and hundreds of thousands of election campaign pieces. But would you agree with me at least that the NDP and the Liberals and the Conservative, no party, should be allowed to use House of Commons envelopes to send out election campaign materials relating to the 2015 election?
Well, there's a great article in iPolitics that summarizes the situation. It's by Elizabeth Thompson, dated April 10th, 2013, and it had to do with what we thought at the time was a misuse by the Liberals and Bob Rae, a direct attack on Craig Scott, our extraordinary Member of Parliament from Toronto Danforth. So we asked the Speaker to rule, and it was brought to the Board of Internal Economy, and he made a couple of tweaks with regard to the numbers, but he essentially confirmed to the NDP that this type of very personal attack, partisan attack by the Liberals against the NDP was indeed allowed. So, sorry, you know, we're not going to roll over if the others are allowed to use these techniques. And the Conservatives invented it. There is a little bit of humor in listening to Mr. Woodworth on this today. We respect the rules, and by the way, I'll remind Mr. Woodworth that Section 1 of the member bylaw says our duties and activities wherever performed and whether or not performed in a partisan manner. That's the key to our discussion here today, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mulcair, you're conveniently overlooking the rule which says that it is not a parliamentary function to engage in activities in the context of an election. And I believe that there is no authority whatsoever from any ruling which says that one can engage in election activities with the use of House of Commons resources. Do you agree with me about that, yes or no?
Well, that goes back to a recent issue involving Bourassa, when there were allegations that we had sent things out during the writ period. You know, you can't do much more than ask Marc Méran to look at it, and when he wrote back within 24 hours and said the NDP didn't send it out during the writ period, we had respected all the rules there as well. Well, that's the best proof we can offer. The Director General of Elections of Canada has said that everything that we did respected the rules.
Mr. Mulcair, I'm very sorry that you won't at least agree that House of Commons resources should not be used to send election materials regarding the 2015 election, and I surely hope that you will put a stop to that with your members, but I'm not too optimistic. I'd like to go back to the other point. You've produced no statement or evidence or email whatsoever which confirms that you or your party advised the House of Commons that you would be having House of Commons paid staff working in a partisan political office. And I want to ask you, surely you understand the ethical issues that arise and the poor appearance that arises from having House of Commons resources working out of a partisan political office. Do you not understand that?
Well, I also understand that when this change was made on April 8th, 2014, it was conclusive proof that it wasn't interdicted prior to that date. So we respected the rules before, and the minute this new rule was adopted, this amendment was brought in, we respected that as well. So I don't think that I'm sure that the member is not suggesting that through his retrospective reflections, we're somehow bound by something that didn't exist at the time.
All you have to do is look at Section 4.1 of the Members' Allowances and Service Manual, and you will see the rule which requires that members only may pair with other members, provincial members, or local municipal officials. There's nothing there that authorizes paid partisan political party offices.
And there was nothing until April 8th, 2014 that interdicted it. That's why the rule was brought in. Thank you. The new rule, the rule changed, the amendment was brought in and interdicted it, and we've respected the new rule ever since.
You have the next 4 minutes also, Mr.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In that case, I'd like to move on to the issue of the Saskatchewan job posting and ask you about that. Just let me find my note, Mr. Mulcair. Do you admit that your job posting for the House of Commons paid position in Saskatchewan said that this was for the purpose of assisting members of Parliament with outreach to their constituents? Yes or no?
Sorry, I'm not sure I caught the sense of your question, Mr. Woodworth. Would you like to try again?
Do you admit that the job posting you put out for a House of Commons paid position in Saskatchewan stated that the position was to, quote, assist members of Parliament with outreach to their constituents, end quote? Yes or no?
It was boilerplate based on provinces where we did have members. It was a mistake, and it was corrected right away.
All right, and it was corrected after the media drew to your attention that, in fact, you have no members in Saskatchewan, correct?
Well, would that it were possible for us to create members of Parliament based on an ad, but that's not the way it works. So yes, we did make a mistake. I hate to admit we made a mistake, and we corrected it.
All right, and So in future, I take it you are going to commit that you will not try to hire House of Commons paid staff to assist your MPs with constituents they don't have. Can we get that commitment from you?
You can have my commitment that we will go into Saskatchewan and we'll be the only political party listening to people, and when we win a majority of seats in Saskatchewan in the next election, it'll be thanks to that, Mr. Woodworth.
Now, let's just get it on the record clearly, Mr. Mulcair. You're saying that your representatives told the House of Commons administration that the staff that you were hiring under this scheme would be working in a partisan political office. Is that what you're telling us?
We're telling you that prior to April 8th, 2014, there's nothing that interdicted that.
All right.
That in all of our correspondence, we have dozens and dozens of letters and emails with the House administration. It was made clear that they were working in Montreal.
You're kind of avoiding my question.
They're allowed to work in Montreal, and up until April 2014, they were allowed to work in premises paid for by a political party. There was nothing wrong with it until April 8th, 2014, Mr. Woodward.
Mr. Mulcair, you've got lots of time to give your self-supporting explanations. My question was, did you tell the House of Commons staff, that is administration, that these staff would be working in a partisan political office, yes or no?
Mr. Woodworth, there was nothing interdicting that prior to April 8th, 2014.
So you didn't tell them because you didn't think you needed to? Is that what you're saying?
We didn't tell them because we didn't have to, and there was nothing forbidding it. They could work wherever they wanted. On April 8th, 2014,
finally answered
the
my
rule
question.
changed.
All right. And in fact, you also told them that they could send checks, pay checks to Montreal, but you never actually told them that these staff would be working in Montreal. Isn't that correct?
We actually did, and a good example of that is the hiring of David Patry. That's a good recent example from January of this year, and it's sent to the House of Commons, and it's about him working in Montreal and working with us and working for the party in Montreal. We were clear on that. We were transparent on that. We respected all the rules that existed at the time, but of course you can't respect a rule that has yet to be adopted, Mr. Woodworth. I think that even you realize that.
Well, of course, I'm just referring you to rules that have been in place for years, Mr. Mulcair, but apart from that, do you agree? I'm out of time. Thank you.
Madame Beauvoir, 4 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Probablement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think maybe I'll get 5 minutes like Mr. Woodworth just did. Thank you, Mr. Mulcair, for being here today before the committee. I find it fascinating to see a leader of a political party take 2 hours of his time. I would have hoped to have that kind of time before the Justice Committee from the Minister. There were a few votes on time allocation motions, so we saw our Minister for about 20 or 25 minutes each time. The insinuations that we hear from Mr. Woodworth and what we're hearing from Liberal colleagues as well, and from what we've read, it seems that there is some confusion. And when I say confusion, I mean the role of the employees for the party in the Montreal office and the employees for the caucus and Quebec MPs. I would like us to specify again how the structure worked according to both collective agreements. How were the activities organized? How did we ensure that Liberal and Conservative colleagues are insinuating, and what we are reading in the media, that they were working on personal activities? I would like you to take a moment to talk more about that new rule adopted on April 8th, 2014. It seems that it's going to stop applying at the end of this Parliament. For me, as a legal expert, I find it interesting to see that not only was the rule changing midstream, which can be done if something we don't like is happening, but to say not only that, when a regulation is passed, it only aims in one direction. I get the impression that that's what happened, and I would like you to talk more about it. I would like you to respond to Mr. Woodworth's insinuations about the fact that our employees were doing partisan work or doing party work versus parliamentary work for which we were paying them. And if you could talk more about that document. Thank you. There's two elements to your question, and I will take them in order. It's important for the legislator because it's in Section 1 of the most important regulation applied to the House of Commons. And it's worth looking at it because I've had the opportunity to read it. I've read it many times. To Mr. Woodworth, it doesn't necessarily mean he understood it, and I will do the same here now. There's a definition in the first section of parliamentary functions for a member, the responsibilities and activities that are linked to an MP's functions, regardless of wherever performed and whether or not performed in a partisan matter, independently of partisan considerations, activities linked to deliberations and work of the House, as well as representation of the riding and voters. That's the definition that I had read earlier. You raise an interesting point. It's fascinating. After having become aware of the fact that it's the party that was paying the rent in Montreal, we know that nothing was preventing them from working in Montreal. I just read it to you. We know that they were administered by Ottawa, which is fine, in line with the information that you provided me. We know that House administration was aware of every step of the way. They knew that they were working in Montreal. We know that your colleague and mine, Joe Comartin, wrote a long letter in December of 2011. Joe established everything that is happening here. The most intriguing part, I'll finish in 30 seconds, Mr. Chair, is that the new rule that until 2015, why only until the election, no one has said.
We'll go to Mr. Woodworth.
Thank you
have
very
two
much.
4-minute spots in a row.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, you say you're familiar with the rules, and yet you want to ignore 4.1 of the members' allowances and service manual. Are you familiar with Bylaw 61, which says that under responsibilities of member, a member may hire employees for the member's parliamentary office or constituency office? Are you familiar with that, yes or no?
Monsieur le Président, nous avons respecté tout.
Mr. Chair, we have obeyed every rule, every step of the way. The House of Commons was aware every step of the way when we hired this staff in Montreal.
It's not answering my questions, but I'll keep asking them anyway. Mr. Mulcair, are you familiar with bylaw number 1, which defines parliamentary office to mean an office that is located on or near Parliament Hill? Are you familiar with that or not, Mr. Mulcair?
Monsieur le
Yes or no?
Président, comme j'ai eu l'occasion de le dire à plus.
Mr. Chair, as I've had the opportunity to say many times, it's written clearly, not in a form, not in a booklet, in a regulation applying the Parliament of Canada Act that says we are allowed to hire staff and have them work anywhere we want them to. Up until April 8th, 2014, there was no interdiction of working in an office whose rent was paid by a political party. Now that the rule is in effect, we are obeying that one too.
The NDP is not obligated to comply with bylaw 61 of the members' bylaws. Yes or no?
Nous avons toujours obtempéré à l'ensemble de la...
We've always obeyed every part of the regulation. It's clear according to all the documents that I have submitted to the committee. This was open and transparent from the beginning of the exercise.
Know that the bylaws define parliamentary office to mean an office located on or near Parliament Hill. Can you and I at least agree that 4428 Boulevard Saint-Laurent, Montreal, did not meet the definition of parliamentary office for your MPs?
Puisque les employés qui travaillent à Ottawa ont le droit le plus strict d'aller aider, par exemple,
We allow staffers to travel to a press conference in Montreal, and we have to pay them mileage. It's a better use of taxpayers' money to concentrate a certain amount of staff where the work is being done, with it being administered out of Ottawa. That has been clear since the very first day.
You want to play by your own rules, and I'm only asking you to acknowledge what the existing rules have to say. And can we agree that since 4428 Boulevard Saint Laurent was not a parliamentary office, it was at least a constituency office for your MPs? Isn't that what was going on?
Mr. Chairman, Section 1 of the member's bylaw states that duties and activities that relate to the position of member, wherever performed and whether or not performed in a partisan manner, constitute parliamentary functions. That's the definition we've always respected. Our parliamentary staff only did parliamentary work. Our political staff did political work. Never the twain shall meet. And that's the issue before this committee. We've respected that every step of the way.
So you don't want to tell me whether you think 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard, Montreal was a parliamentary office or a constituency office under the rules. Is that your answer?
Since no one is questioning, because Section 1 couldn't be clearer, the fact that employees are allowed to work wherever we assign them, the difference is we're making a better use of taxpayers' money. Instead of paying back and forth in kilometers from Montreal to take care of a press conference, Ottawa, Montreal to take care of a press conference in Montreal, we're actually basing a concentration of employees there. There was nothing wrong with it until April 8th, 2014. When the rule changed, we respected the changed rule. It's an amendment. Now, it's not a retroactive amendment. It's not a retrospective amendment. It's one that we're following.
Mr. Mulcair, you know about Bylaw 61.1, which says that members have to hire employees either for their parliamentary office or their constituency office. Do you agree with me that that is why the employment form that every member signs has a box to check off either for Ottawa office or constituency office? Do you agree that's that check off is trying to enforce Bylaw 61, yes or no?
Le port d'attache de ces employés a toujours été à juste.
The head office of these employees has always been clearly indicated as being Ottawa because the head office for administrative purposes was Ottawa. Whether they work in an office whose rent is paid by the party, that was entirely accepted, legitimate, and legal up until April 8th, 2014. We obeyed the rules before the change. We're obeying the new rules since the rules were changed, but up until that date, there was absolutely nothing that prevented them from doing what we did. We were open with the House of Commons. We consulted them every step of the way, from the implementation, from the hiring letter. And let me say that the interpretation clearly indicates that when something is allowed, that does not mean that other things are not forbidden.
Okay, but let me ask you another one. Are you acknowledging then that your members of Parliament deliberately led the House of Commons administration to believe that these staff were being hired for a parliamentary office, not a constituency office?
Monsieur le Président, l'ensemble.
Mr. Chair, all of the documentation is so clear. It's extraordinarily clear with these documents that we've been open at every step, that the central office was going to be Ottawa. It was entirely permissible for them to work in an office whose rent was paid by the party. Is the member suggesting that employees don't have the right to not work here? It's a direct contradiction with Section 1 of the rules that indicates, when defining parliamentary functions, that they can work where they want.
Spot. I am not suggesting anything other than that Canadians ought to be shocked that House of Commons employees are being sent to work in a partisan political office and that House of Commons envelopes are being used to send 2015 election appeals. But surely it's clear. I agree with you on one point. It is clear, and it's clear that a parliamentary office means an office located on or near Parliament Hill. That's a rule that was in place all along. Surely, Mr. Mulcair, you have to acknowledge that.
I know that the member is going to find this difficult to understand, but Rule 4.1 is about using House of Commons money to rent parliamentary office space. The NDP did not use House of Commons money. That's what's been established. I will offer, again, they haven't accepted the offer, I will give him every single check for every single month that that office was open. Every penny was paid for by the party. That became a problem in April 2014, and we respected it. It was never House of Commons money. That's what he doesn't seem to understand.
Well, Mr. Mulcair, it was House of Commons money that paid the people working there.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Mr. Christopherson, you're up. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Didn't work right. I like that point. I'd like to come back to that because this is part of what we hear the rhetoric, and the rhetoric is that House of Commons money is being used to support partisan activities. And the fact of the matter is that no House of Commons, my question to you, Mr. Mulcair, is it accurate that no House of Commons money was spent to pay the rent for the Montreal office?
It's so clear from the documents that I have, Mr. Christopherson. I guess that's the reason why the Conservatives don't want to look at them, because it disproves their thesis. But I have them here. We've made copies for everyone, and they can see that every single penny of every month of rent was paid 100% by the NDP, which was, again, absolutely allowed under the rules until last month. And when that rule was changed and when it was amended, we started following the new rule. And there's never been a problem with that at any point.
Thank you. So the office was paid for by the party. The House of Commons staff knew the people were working in Montreal. There was no attempt to hide the fact that the Montreal office was there. In fact, there was a media event to promote the opening of it. We've established that there were clear separations between the function of people who were on the parliamentary side versus those who were on the partisan side. It'd be interesting to see where the government goes from here, because I don't know what's left. Everything that's been raised has been adequately covered off, piece by piece by piece, minus the rhetoric, I grant you. If you remove the rhetoric, you're left with what I just said, which is there's no House of Commons money involved in the paying of this office, that the House of Commons staff knew that our staff were working in Montreal, that there was no attempt to hide the fact that this office was there and open and functioning, and lastly, there is clear separation between the work being done on those on the parliamentary side and those on the partisan side. We've established that. It'll be interesting to see where else the government wants to go, because so far they're not getting anywhere. Now, my question is this. To put it in a broader context, Mr. Mulcair, I want to take you back. And you had mentioned in your opening remarks the reason why you opened up these offices, why you were looking at the Saskatchewan office. And I want to put that in the context of a government that is opening up ministerial offices all across the country, 17, I believe. And so I would like you to speak to that objective that you had in light of what the government was doing, and with taxpayer money, by the way, 100%. I'm not saying it's partisan work, but it's a presence and they're there. And then I'd also like to put it in the context of what is your budget as the leader of the official opposition, and what is the budget of the Prime Minister's office, and what have the increases been to your budget versus the increases to the cabinet budget that the Prime Minister has access to? If you would, Mr. Mulcair.
Thank you, Mr. Christopherson. As you know, one of the primary institutional roles of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition is to hold the government to account. So, of course, the fact that the government has been adding these offices at a rapid pace has made our job more difficult. We have to hold them to account. That also means following them at ground level. It's interesting to note that just in the past fiscal year, so from 2011-12, when the election took place, to fiscal 2012-13, so in 1 year, the Prime Minister's office has increased its own budget by 7.4%. This is completely different. Yes, this is exclusive of the millions of dollars that they're spending on these other offices. Whereas, I'm just going to repeat. I'm going to give one number, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to give one number, and then
in the next answer, I'm sure you might be able to do that, Mr. Woodworth. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm really surprised that the NDP members haven't been giving their leader more opportunity to answer questions, but I'm going to give him a few more. First of all, Mr. Mulcair, I understand that, in fact, the lease at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard, Montreal, is in the name of NDP Caucus Services. Will you at least confirm that much with a yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. That's the first one. Thank you.
And it was signed by
Mr.
Nicolas
Mulcair?
Dominique Odette, who was the first person hired, and it shows on his hiring form here in the House of Commons that his address for his work is in Montreal. He was the first shared employee.
NDP Caucus Services.
Let's try and work a little bit on answering the question.
We almost got there,
You
Mr.
told me
Chairman.
I was going to get a chance to answer, but I'll have to wait for the next
Mr.
one.
Mulcair, NDP Caucus Services is funded by taxpayers through House of Commons.
Absolutely true.
Thank you very much. And yet, although the lease is in the name of an NDP Caucus Services funded by taxpayers, it has the NDP partisan symbol on the door, not the House of Commons, correct?
Absolutely true.
Now, do you think there might be something a little wrong with the appearance of the House of Commons funding an office that has a partisan label on the door rather than a House of Commons label?
That would be completely the case, Mr. Woodworth, were it not for one fact that gets in the way of your narrative. The fact that every single month of rent has in fact been paid for by the NDP itself. When we looked at this at the beginning, we said there's never going to be a debate or discussion about who's paying for this. The party said we're going to pick up the tab and there'll never be a discussion about this. I guess we underestimated the extent to which you are capable of making something out of nothing, because not $1 of taxpayers' money has ever gone towards that office.
I'm going
Mr.
to go
Woodworth.
back to the rule that you conveniently want to ignore, and I'm going to read it out loud again for you. Members may share office space with another member, a member of a provincial legislature, or an elected municipal representative. Now, you're a lawyer. You know that rules of interpretation say that when a rule has a list, that it's exhaustive and there's no indication of anything else being allowed. Don't you agree with that?
Exactly right.
Well, the rule that you're trying to refer to is usually called a jusdem generis, but in fact, the rule you should be trying to use is exclusio unius est exclusio
That, as a matter of fact,
alterius.
is exactly the rule
That
I'm referring
rule
to.
would have you understand that when you include something, you're excluding others.
Exactly.
When you come up with a new rule on April 8th, 2014, that says, as of April 8th, 2014, you can no longer do this, that means that prior to April 8th, 2014, you could do this.
Not at all, Mr.
By the way,
Mulcair.
there's an excellent work entitled Bibliographie sur l'interprétation et la rédaction des textes législatifs, 375 pages, published in 1979 by the Éditeur officiel du Québec. I am the author of it, and I'll be glad to give you a signed copy.
Everybody in this room, Mr. Mulcair, knows that the April rule was designed to simply stop you from violating the previous rules. And to use your own words, expressio unius means that when we say you can partner and share space with a member of parliament, a member of provincial legislature, a municipal officer, that means nobody else, and especially not a partisan political office. Don't you agree? Yes or no?
If only you knew anything about statutory interpretation and the interpretation of documents.
I know quite a bit, Mr. Mulcair.
Here you go. April 8th, 2014, the following amendment to the members' bylaw. As of April 8th, 2014, no employee of a member or House of Commons may have as their regular place of work any space or premises owned, leased, or under the effective control of a political party. What that means, Mr. Woodworth, is that up until April 7th, 2014, there was nothing wrong with it.
Well,
that's
Mr.
what that
Mulcair,
means,
that's
Mr.
only
Woodworth.
so if you ignore the rule that existed before that date, which you seem to be intent on doing. So let me ask you, from the standpoint of a non-lawyer, an ordinary Canadian, do you really not perceive the ethical difficulties with sending House of Commons staff to work in an office which is leased by, run by, labeled by a partisan political office? Do you not understand the ethical issue that this Rule 4.1 that was in existence in 2011 was designed to prevent?
The amendment that I referred to earlier, Mr. Chairman, came into force on April 14th, 2014. The member would, of course, be right if on April 15th, 2014, we still had that staff in an office paid for by the NDP. We did not. They now work out of my riding office.
So, Mr. Mulcair, you are in fact insisting that it's perfectly fine for House of Commons staff to work in a partisan political office. That's okay with you. Is that your evidence today?
You have to go back to the definition of parliamentary function. That's what this debate is supposed to be about. Duties and activities that relate to the position of member wherever performed. So, going back to the rules of interpretation that we both seem to enjoy, wherever performed is not limitative. It is all-inclusive wherever performed, including in an office in another city, because nobody is suggesting, or at least I haven't heard it yet, that we're not allowed to take employees, pay their kilometers, and have them work somewhere else, because wherever performed means wherever performed. So that means that there was nothing wrong with having our staff working in an office that was paid for by somebody else. We never used a penny of taxpayers' money for that office. What we did do is make the party pay every single penny of every month of rent, and when it became impossible for us to do that after April 14th, you know what? We respected the new rules as well, which is what we've done every step of the way.
I certainly regret the fact that you see nothing wrong with House of Commons employees who should be fulfilling parliamentary functions being housed in an office which is labeled with a partisan political label, and by the way, in which the telephones are answered with the message, would you like to give a donation to the NDP, and so on and so forth. But be that as it may, Mr. Mulcair, don't you think that a member should not, and forget, I'm out of time.
I'm going to have to stop you there.
Thank you.
Please, Mr. Julian, 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I feel almost sorry for Mr. Woodworth, but
Mr. Reid?
I think the senators are running
Instead of Mr. Julian's time, of course. It's just this. Mr. Mulcair has referred to all of the checks since the lease began, and he indicated that he would be willing to offer these to the committee if they were asked for, which left me with the thought that he might be under the misapprehension that if we don't ask for them, they won't be submitted. So just in case that's the case, do you have them there? Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll take a look at those. Thank you, too.
Mr. Julian?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yet another answer given, but I feel sorry for Mr. Woodworth. He started off by talking about co-location until it turns out that they're Conservative members doing the co-location actually with taxpayer-paid offices. Talked about partisan mailing until the Leader of the Opposition raised the issue of the incredibly partisan mailings that Conservatives and Liberals do. He also raised the Members' Services Manual without mentioning, and I'll reference this to the Leader of the Official Opposition, that they had to impose the new Members' Bylaw 93.1, which comes from the decision on April 8th. And to not mention that, I think, is disingenuous, to say the least, Mr. Woodworth. What you're saying is you changed the Members' Bylaw, and it shouldn't have happened. So, the other... Yes,
Mr. Julian,
thank you, Mr.
perhaps
Chair.
I'm invisible again to you.
No.
But when I go to speak, then you say, yes, Mr. Chair, how can I help you?
Yes, Mr. Chair, how can I help you?
That's great. Please, you're questioning the witnesses, not the members of the other side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And the other point I wanted to note from my colleague, the member of the Official Opposition, if Mr. Woodworth had actually read through all of the material, because he referenced the House administration, he would have seen all of the job contracts, for example, Redactis, Service au Caucus, Québec du MPD, qui a été déposé.
NDP Caucus Services document. This was tabled with House administration. We see other mails to agents of the media, and it's sent to the NDP Caucus office in Montreal, province of Quebec. And if we look further, we see Press Attaché, Caucus Services, NDP, the Quebec NDP Caucus, Montreal, Quebec. Frankly, if they had looked at all the documents, they would have seen the answers to those questions without taking up the committee's time with it. But now I'd like to ask a few questions of my colleague, the Leader of the Official Opposition, about the issue of barriers and grievances. Since 2011, if I understand correctly, there were reductions. That's something that my Conservative colleagues have not mentioned. I would like you to specify the reduction percentage, how much the opposition budget was reduced, and contrast that with the increases granted to the Prime Minister's office and the increasing numbers of offices opened, of ministerial offices open throughout the country, including in places where the Conservatives do not have any MPs and where the Conservatives do have MPs. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's important to keep in mind that at the moment that we are speaking, the budgets for the Leader of the Official Opposition and the Prime Minister are about, there's a difference of 300% in favor of the Prime Minister's budget. But to look at the curve to see the trend of what's happening, the government is using its majority in order to strangle the budget of the Leader of the Opposition. For 2011, 2012 to 2014 to 2015, the official opposition budget was reduced by 9.8%, whereas within a single year from 2011-12 to 2012-13, the budget of the Prime Minister's office, the government used its majority again to increase it by 7.4%. In the same period, the government opened many new regional offices for its ministers, which cost millions of dollars in places, as you indicated, where they often
the House on the spending for political purposes. You're talking about government spending, and you're going a little far afield of where we are today. I thought it might get there, Mr. Julian.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It was my question, and it is absolutely relevant. We've had some pretty, I would say, going over the borderline comments from Conservative members. This is an honest question. Overall, how much has the budget from the Leader of the Official Opposition actually gone down? How much has he saved? While the government has been spending millions and millions of dollars expanding their network across the country. It's a perfectly legitimate question.
Thank you, Mr. Julian, and I didn't interrupt till we started talking about government offices, and government spending is not the purpose of this committee today. Right? We'll certainly have the estimates before us in some point of order, and we'll do that. But right now, let's see if we can keep it on the reference that we're here today.
Il est néanmoins, Monsieur le Président, pertinent.
Nevertheless, Mr. Chair, it is relevant to recall one thing, and it is essential. While the government is cutting our budget, it's opening ministerial offices throughout Canada to conduct partisan work. It's relevant to our study because the essence of today's discussion intends to find out and to understand the definition of parliamentary function within the context of what was done. I also have to say that I found it peculiar that after an hour and a half of explanation and inability to demonstrate that there was any problem, that Mr. Woodworth has decided to offer up phone numbers and how we answer the phone in the office. What he said is false. He made it up. We have always rigorously respected the separation between parliamentary functions and party functions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to come back to all these questions of administrative regulation of members' offices because Mr. Woodworth thought, wow, I've finally found something in here. And when we look at it, it's very clear, Mr. Chair, that what happened was the Conservatives, using their majority that they have the majority at the Board of Internal Economy. It's not the same process as before where there was consensus on the board. Now it's majority rules. And it decides on the rules regardless of whether or not this is fair. It's clear that this government, which has a majority, changed the administrative rules. The question should have been whether the Leader of the Official Opposition is obeying the new rules, and he's already answered that. But to say that there was some sort of problem which they solved by making up a new rule answers that question. I'm just going to ask the leader of the official opposition one single question. With all the attacks that we've seen, do you think, Mr. Mulcair, that the government should ensure that resources are dedicated to meeting the needs of the Canadian population rather than wasting out on these inquiries? It would have been more interesting and instructive. However, I will allow myself, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
Lengthy question.
In one of these famous ministerial offices, Solly Zaidel, of sad memory, now facing criminal charges, was put to work. He was a defeated Conservative candidate. And these guys want to talk to us about partisans?
Well, that's, we'll see what the next questioning does. Mr. LeBlanc? 7 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Moi, je vais poser une question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask a relatively brief question in French, and my colleague from Charlottetown will ask his questions afterwards. Mr. Mulcair, when Gilles Duceppe and the Bloc Québécois was accused of using public funds for partisan ends, you remember, and parliamentary leader at the time, Mr. Comartin, said that if they are working for the party, they are not paid with parliamentary funds. There's no doubt of it. I don't understand how they think that they can do this. We intend to sanction this, and the party will be repaid. Those are the words of your parliamentary leader at the time, Mr. Comartin. At the same time, Mr. Mulcair, during those weeks, the NDP was organizing with assistance paid for by taxpayers, renting an office in Montreal. You said it's paid by the NDP in the end, we understand that. But parliamentary employees were organized training sessions for elections. My question is simple. Do you agree with Mr. Comartin that this is an abuse of taxpayers' money and that taxpayers should be repaid for those abuses? It's false to say that I said that it was paid. I thought you were a lawyer. Perhaps I was mistaken. There's proof here. There are checks here that indicate, and it's not a matter of opinion, that it was indeed paid for by the party. The work of our parliamentary employees, the work of our party employees do party work. They report to different people. We have organizers who worked there. They were part of another union local. The answer is very clear. Since the very beginning, we informed the House that staffers were going to work in Montreal. We were very clear that they had the right to do so, and the law says so, even if the documents say that. There's no question that they were allowed to work in Montreal. The question is whether they were doing parliamentary work, and the answer is yes, and we are the only ones who can offer that proof because of the existence of two unions with two different job descriptions. To be fair, I asked about what Mr. Comartin said, but I know we have very little time. My colleague from Charlottetown would like to ask a question. I will still answer on the matter of Mr. Joe Comartin, because what happened?
David Petrie, was he paid through parliamentary resources in 2012?
David Petrie.
David Petrie was paid with parliamentary resources. Yes, he was hired, I think it was in 2012.
Would it be acceptable for him to put out a press release reporting NDP party memberships using parliamentary resources?
I think that we all do the same sort of thing. We boast about our bon coup and our mauvais coup. And some of that work involves, as it says right here in the statute, it says, and it applies to you and it applies to us, that we're allowed to work wherever we want, whether that work is partisan in nature or not. That is the definition in the very first section of the most important regulation under the House of Commons Act, and there's no problem with that.
So you're comfortable with an employee being paid by the taxpayer, sending out a press release with respect to NDP party membership numbers. Do you also find it acceptable that Mr. Petrie wrote a letter to the editor in Sherbrooke using his parliamentary title that was strictly related to the NDP leadership race?
I'm unaware of that, but and I don't know that anyone did that. So you're making that affirmation, and I don't know about it.
Would you like a copy?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mulcair, can you confirm that several NDP riding associations in Quebec publicly list the Montreal satellite office as their address?
I'm sorry, I was trying to read the document you just gave me, which you were trying to reference and which I hadn't had occasion to see. And it's just a simple explanation of the fact that 59,000 New Democrats across the country took part in the election of a new leader, including 4,600 here in Toronto, blah, 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 strengthened by the election of the new leader, New Democrats, blah, blah, blah. That's the type of work that you do, we do, everybody does. I don't see what the big deal is. But anyway, keep going. What's your next question?
Can you confirm that several NDP riding associations in Quebec publicly list the Montreal office as their address?
I wouldn't be surprised. There are people working there who are from the party, and it's an office paid for by the party. And sometimes when you don't have a fully set up and structured riding association yet, you give the party address. No big deal there. Charles Bussière is the agent financier. He is in the other bargaining unit. He does work that is quite different. There's not the slightest problem with that. Sorry to destroy your Perry Mason moment, Mr. Casey.
Mr. Mulcair, you're a recent participant to this shared employee program just as of a couple of months ago, and when you decided to participate, you would have signed an employment form in which you would have checked a box as to whether the employee was working in the Ottawa office or the constituency office. Is that right?
I haven't got the document in front of me, so I won't be able to respond.
You've seen the documents. All of the employees that are in the Montreal Satellite office and paid for through parliamentary resources would have had a form signed by their employer
well,
of
one of the
indicating
reasons
that they were either in the Ottawa office or in the constituency
for the 58
office.
new MPs, and I wasn't one of them. I already had a full contingent of staff. One of the reasons that I am signing them now and taking them on is for the reason I gave before.
And is there anything unclear about the form in terms of being in the Ottawa office or the constituency office?
As I've said since the beginning of our discussion today, what we call le port d'attache, there are only two options that are offered on the current form. And as I referenced earlier, this is a much better way of using taxpayers' resources, and we're grouping people in Montreal. It was legal, completely within the rules until April 8th, 2014. The rules have changed as of April 14th, 2014, and as of April 15th, 2014, we're following the new rules the same way we followed the old rules.
Mr. Mulcair, I'm from Prince Edward Island, and we're very familiar with there was something wrong with the forms defense. It didn't work out very well for the last guy that did it.
Your time is complete.
Thank you.
Mr. Woodworth, 4 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair is or was Daniel Quinn, one of the House of Commons paid staff at the office on Saint Laurent Boulevard?
No, Dan Quinn is a party worker.
All right. And so you're aware, of course, that he is or has advertised a big recruiting day at that office in Quebec, correct?
I haven't seen it, but as I've mentioned many times before, it's an office paid for 100% by the party.
And so there are partisan activities which are occurring all the time at that office, correct?
No, very rare.
I see. But certainly partisan recruiting days, correct?
If you have that and that's the case, then I'm, you know, as I've said since the beginning, we've been absolutely clear and transparent on this. It's an office paid for 100% by the party. So, of course, there are party activities that take place there with the party staff. And we've been clear about that since the beginning.
In fact, it's used as the address of a partisan political riding association for Pierre Fond-Delart, correct?
We just went over that. If you want to have the same answer, you need up some of your own time. But I think that the answer couldn't have been clearer to your colleague who just asked the exact same question.
And the answer is yes, correct?
The answer is that political parties sometimes give the address of the political party waiting for a riding association to be up and running and structured. That's what happens in all political parties. Yours, ours, theirs.
In fact,
there's nothing there.
At this office, staffed by, among other people, paid House of Commons staff, there are sessions for fundraising and election preparedness on behalf of the New Democratic Party partisan office, correct?
This is a party office. There are several people in there who are party employees. They come under a collective agreement that defines their tasks. Our parliamentary staff does parliamentary work. Our party staff does party work. You're describing some party work.
Well, you've insisted that there was no partisan work done by House of Commons staff at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard. Do you think perhaps that Alexander Boulerice got his 2015, his pitch for 2015 election support that he sent out with taxpayer assistance prepared at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard?
Well, it's quite possible if it was done by somebody who was working for the party, but I go back to Section 1 of the members' bylaws. Parliamentary functions includes all duties and activities that relate to the position of member, whether performed and whether or not performed in a partisan manner, Mr. Woodworth.
Well,
the law couldn't be clearer.
Mr. Mulcair, let me refer you to Bylaw 4, Section 3, which says that for greater certainty, the following activities, when performed by a member, are not parliamentary functions, and paragraph D is activities designed in the context of a federal election to support or oppose a political party, very much as Mr. Boulerice has done in this mailer. Do you agree with me that that's not proper?
Mr. Woodworth, since the beginning, you've had great difficulty understanding a very clear proposition. That at an address where the rent was paid 100% by the NDP, there were certain employees in a union performing work that was party work. At the same address, because it was allowed up until April 14th of this year, we had other employees doing parliamentary work. There's never been any commingling of the two. Party workers do party work, parliamentary workers do parliamentary work. It would be a really difficult proposition for you to prove because you don't have that sort of separation. We do. So I'm the only one who can come here and say, under these collective agreements, party workers have always done party work, parliamentary workers have only done parliamentary work.
What I do have, Mr. Mulcair, is a piece of literature talking about the 2015 federal election, asking people to join in order to put the country on the right track. And it was sent out, at the very least, with taxpayer funds through the free mailing privileges. And how do I know it wasn't done at 4428 Saint Laurent Boulevard?
Thank you very much. Mr. Chris.
Same thing that the Liberals do, the exact same thing that the Conservatives do. We have example after example after example.
Mr. Christopherson, 4 minutes for you, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Appreciate that. In my last comments, I said I was looking forward to a sort of a new front being opened that might actually get the government somewhere, and the Liberals too. That didn't happen. So I don't need to spend my time shoring anything up because they haven't done any damage to a very clear, straightforward case that Mr. Mulcair has put forward. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to return back to this April 8th change to the rules because it's key to all this in many ways. Now it says in 93, this is new, 93.1 sub 1. No employee of a member or House officer may have as their regular place of work any space in premises owned, leased, or under the effective control of a political party. Does that currently exist right now, Mr. Mulcair?
The rule came into force on April 8th, 2014, effective April 14th, 2014, and we've been obeying it since it came into force.
So, the second the rule was changed, you immediately brought your party into compliance. And prior to that, the government's trying to suggest that retroactively this clarification, call it what you will, but this interpretation should be applied to something before April the 14th. Would you please again just explain how that doesn't make any sense and that that's not how lawmaking works?
Well, you can just imagine if somebody were to create a penalty after the fact for something that you've already done. That wasn't up until then an offense. That's the essence of the argument of on the Conservative side of this discussion today. The reason that the new rule was brought in, and it is a completely new rule, was because up until that date there was nothing wrong with it. We've been clear, open, transparent. This was an office paid for by the NDP, 100% with NDP money. And when the rule changed, those employees were gone immediately from that office. We've continued to follow the rules as they're now established. As for a clarification on how the amendment 23.1 can be interpreted as anything other than an attack on the official opposition because it expires in 2015, I'll let the Liberals and the Conservatives explain that to you.
Thank you. If I might, I just want to stay with this because there's a part here that I just find interesting, and I would appreciate your thoughts on it. 93.1 sub 7 makes the point that the section becomes effective April 14th. You've addressed that in terms of what the NDP was doing prior to that date and what they did upon the April 14th new rule coming into effect. It's interesting, the sub-point before that, Mr. Mulcair, is 93.1 sub 6. And it says that this section is repealed effective on the dissolution of the 41st Parliament. Now, if this is such a good rule protecting taxpayer money, can you have any, do you know, because I don't, do you know why this rule dissolves at the end of this Parliament and doesn't exist in the next Parliament?
It is intriguing to ask that question because you can immediately imagine that Conservatives heading for third, if not fourth party status, Liberals heading for maybe third party status if they're lucky, could want to bring back a rule on the dissolution of the next Parliament. But here's the rub. If it was such a problem, why make this rule change only apply for the next couple of years? When we saw the rule change only applying until the next election, it was immediately clear to us the jig was up. This whole exercise is about Conservatives using their majority along with their Liberal buddies to try to stymie the extraordinary work that the NDP official opposition has been able to do across Canada.
Thank you, and well past time. I'll go to Mr. Woodworth. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, I'm going to read to you what Speaker Scheer had to say in his statement about the April release. And that is the Honourable Andrew Scheer, Speaker of the House of Commons, Chair of the Board of Internal Economy, has confirmed that the Board is conducting an investigation into the use of House of Commons resources in offices outside of the parliamentary precinct or constituency offices. This investigation is further to allegations of improper use of House resources brought forward to the Board, specifically related to the Members' Bylaw, Section 4.3. While the investigation is proceeding, the Board is acting quickly to end the performance of parliamentary work and political work from the same location, adopting the following provisional amendment. Now, what that really says is that this amendment was adopted to stop you and your party from ignoring all of the rules which I've been quoting to you for the last hour and a half. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Speaker, I would appreciate it if Mr. Woodworth were to provide Anne McGrath, our party General Secretary, with his address so we can share the fee of our attorneys. I thank him for proving our case for us. Exactly that. This rule was brought in so that as of April 14th, 2014, what was allowed up until that date would no longer be allowed. Both Mr. Scheer's short statement and the rules of statutory interpretation are conclusive. Prior to April 8th, 2014, there was absolutely nothing that interdicted the use of an office paid for by a political party as long as the separation was such that we were practicing. Parliamentary workers doing parliamentary work, party workers doing party work. It was allowed. It became disallowed on the date of the 14th of April, and following that date, we respected the new rules the same way we respected at all times the old rules.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to defer to my colleague, the Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Listen, the one thing that is clearly apparent in all of this testimony that we've heard this morning is some may argue that there's just a difference of opinion or a difference in interpretation, but there's one thing that is crystal clear, that there is a huge contradiction in the testimony provided by Mr. Mulcair and documents provided by the House administration in one key point. Mr. Mulcair has stated, as have his colleagues on many occasions, that he was excruciatingly clear with the House administration that the employees under question were located in Montreal. He has said every step of the way we let the House administration know that those employees were to be housed and located in Montreal. The problem with that, and where the contradiction lies, is in a document of May 9th memo from, I believe it was, yes, it was to Mr. Preston, from the clerk of the House of Commons, Audrey O'Brien, who, as characterized by Mr. Mulcair, is above reproach. Her integrity is never questioned, nor should it be. I agree with that totally. However, in that memorandum of May 9th, on page 8, Mr. Mulcair, if you want to reference it, point 21, it says, at no point was the House administration informed that the employees would be located in Montreal or that their work would be carried out in cooperation with a political party's offices. So there is a huge contradiction, and because of that, Mr. Chair, I want to give notice to the committee and particularly for the benefit of Mr. Mulcair that in light of the discrepancies between the evidence of the Leader of the Official Opposition and the documents produced in response to the committee's order of Tuesday, May 6, 2014, the committee continued its study pursuant to its order of reference of Thursday, March 27, 2014, on the matter of accusations of the official opposition's improper use of House of Commons resources for partisan purposes. That, in view of the evidence adduced to date, the committee expanded its study, if further evidence warrants, to topics incidental to matters relating to the election of members to the House of Commons pursuant to Standing Order 108.3 sub A sub 6. That the committee accept the request of the Board of Internal Economy of Wednesday, May 14, 2014, to provide it and the Speaker with a report pursuant to Standing Order 103 sub 3 sub A 1, in addition to any report the committee may provide to the House in relation to this study. That the committee invite additional witnesses, including but not limited to the member for St. Maurice Champlain and the Clerk of the House of Commons, to appear in relation to this study, and that the Clerk of the committee advise the Leader of the Official Opposition that the committee is prepared to recall him to appear as a witness if necessary following further evidence adduced during the study, provided that it shall be deemed to be a continuation of his appearance on Thursday, May 15, 2014. And I will be moving this motion for approval at our next meeting of Procedure and House Affairs. Now, Mr. Chair, how much time do I have left?
2.5 minutes.
I will cede my time to my colleague, Mr. Casey.
Mr. Casey, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulcair, on April 9th, your Deputy Leader, Megan Leslie, said, well, we actually checked this out before we did it. We got approval from the Speaker. Can you point us to the documentation or tell us of the conversation with the Speaker that approved this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to kill two birds with one stone because, of course, it wouldn't be very fair to us not to let us answer Mr. Lukiski. With regard to the government continuing to use its majority, that's all this is about. The government used its majority at the Board of Internal Economy to change a rule. We respected the rule before, we respected it now. The government's going to use its majority. Look, normally these committees are used to hold the government to account. We're absolutely transparent. We have literally dozens of documents that show that the administration was aware that these people were working in Montreal, but that's never even been the case.
Motion will be debated at this committee next.
We're
not debating it now.
Well, thank you, but Mr. President, I think that given the stunt that you've just allowed from that side, I should at least be given a chance to respond.
Indeed, pulling a stunt is moving a motion at committee. I have allowed it. But when a motion is tabled at this committee, it's notice of the motion, and we will not discuss the motion until the next meeting.
Right. But we're here together today on a specific
that's what I just
subject.
Ruled on.
Pardon me?
But that's what I just ruled. We're not going to discuss that motion right now.
Right. So you
As
let him come in, make that statement, but you won't even give us equal time.
I'm suggesting that the rules of the committee are you can table a motion
Point
as
of
Mr.
order.
while I was talking even. Great. We have the ability to move a motion, table a motion. We get 48 hours notice to the committee and it will be discussed the next time. That's the committee. Sorry, but our friends at this
everybody
committee is how we
watching now
always
has
work.
all the information that they need,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speaker, Mr. Chairman. They understand that the government's using its majority with their Liberal henchmen to try to call the official opposition to account. It's unprecedented, but you know what? Since we've shown you every step of the way that we respected all the rules today, we're just going to continue to do that.
Thank you.
Show you that every step of the way we've respected all the rules.
Then the rules that I'll follow are, as Mr. Casey still has about a minute and a half left before I think we finish our meeting today.
Thank you. My question, Mr. Mulcair, is this. On April 9th, your deputy leader claimed that all of this was checked out and approved by the Speaker. That's not true, is it?
What we're both referring to are the dozens of documents that refer to the fact that people were being hired in the Montreal office.
No,
they're
we're
from
referring to communication with the Speaker.
They're from 2012. They're from 2014. They always mention the Montreal office. When the rule was changed on April 8th, 2014, we respected the new rule the same way we respected the existing rules prior to that date, Mr. Casey. There's never been a problem. Their port d'attache was Ottawa. That was clear as well. These documents go back for the past 3 years. There's a great letter from Joe Comartin. I invite you to take cognizance of it. That letter from Mr. Comartin remained unanswered. Qui ne dit mot consent. He set out the whole case in that letter, and we have all of these documents that refer specifically to Montreal. He asked a series of questions because the whole thing had been the object of a serious analysis here in the House. I have far more respect for the officers in this House who were providing BlackBerries to 514, receiving documents written in Montreal, sending documents themselves that mention the Montreal office than you appear to. I know that they knew what they were doing, and we have respected the rules every step of the way.
Thank you very much. We have come to the end of our meeting today, and I will remind
Madame Boivin does have 2 minutes, as you know.
And the chair has some business that he'd like to share with the committee, and it may take that time, so he's given himself the opportunity to do so. But thank you for helping me chair again, Mr. Julian. You're such a good assistant. Yes? Yeah, well, I'm saying
You're saying I'm losing my time.
We're stopping at that point. Yes, with the numbers of points of orders today, we certainly are ruling out that there will be missing a number of spots at the bottom of this meeting today. We have a document coming out from the clerk today. You'll receive it today to all your offices about the documents and stuff that we have. Please take note of that. I'd like the committee to also take note that May 27th would be one of our normal meeting days, and we're looking at, because of a number of members being in Ukraine for election observing, perhaps not having a meeting that day. We'll give you as much notice as we can about that happening. And thank you all for your work today, and we are adjourned.